Check this out. Lupe Fiasco, Resurrection. It's all happening.
Static Selector.
Lupe Fiasco released his 7th studio album 1 week early. Drogas Wave is billed as a concept album about a group of slaves who revolt and sink a slave ship. But instead of drowning, they somehow survive and live at the bottom of the sea. Heavy stuff. What's interesting is that narrative is only told directly through the first 8 tracks. At least that's how it feels. It opens with a poem in the event of a typhoon, then moves on to drogas, which means drugs in Spanish. This is the first time we've heard Fiasco flow entirely in Espanol, by the way. Shout out to Letty. Then there's Manila's, a raucous cipher cut where Lou delivers abstract braggadocio. The song's outro explains that Manila were copper bracelets used as currency to trade for slaves. Lou's been actively collecting Manilas. He says they're his most prized possessions. Here's what they look like. Then there's Gold versus The Right Things to Do, where Lou kicks rhymes in patois before switching back to an American accent to outline the premise. Roll the clip.
Got 'em. Shit gets pulled to the bottom by a group of men and women holding ropes with large hooks on the ends, specifically designed for catching boats. Crew in disbelief as they choke the weight of the chains on the slaves, pull them down to what they think are their graves. Afraid as they sink from the surface of the sea till a soft voice in the water tells them, breathe.
Deep. Pun intended. Let's break it down. On Lupe Fiasco's official Reddit page, he gives an explanation about who actually pulled the ship beneath the sea. He says they are called the Long Chains. When they were submerged in the water, their earthly lives expired and they began a new life under and on the water. Some walked back to Africa while others stayed in the sea to help fight slavery by attacking and sinking slave ships. Michael Young History from Food and Liquor and the Cool, the main character, was resurrected by the same method when his grave was filled with liquor his friends and the streets poured out to mourn him. The Long Chains disbanded at the end of the transatlantic slave trade. However, a few were chosen to stay behind to keep watch as guides for descendants of slaves that found freedom and wanted to return home. The last of the Long Chains still patrol the seas and heavens to this day. This is all a narrative. None of this is real, but still, it's all happening. Now, Wave Files, the next song, is not only an absolute standout on this project, but for Lupe's entire career. It's a majestic 6-minute and 38-second opus where the Long Chains point fingers at the waves and the trees and the stars for helping the slave traders. Check out these lyrics. "Sea salty 'cause it cries with us," he says. "Talking to the trees like how can you be in the chorus of something so horrid," he says. "Talking to the stars, you were too busy just trying to shine. You should have been trying to save us." There's a whole verse here where he simply name drops slave ships. And that hook, absolutely perfect. Roll the clip. The concept continues explicitly over the next 2 songs. There's Haile Selassie I, which is dope. It's been out a few years. Make sure you check that out. Then there's Down, which is my least favorite song on this entire project. The first line heard on this song is literally, "Fish is my friends and whales is my homies." Later he says, "Lobsters is cool. They are not food. They're part of the crew. That means they're down." Now the metaphor is that everyone wants an audience with the people at the top, but the people at the bottom are ignored. We don't care about what is happening at the bottom. We don't care what those people think. And I understand it. I get it in relationship to the concept, but the overall analogy is too baked in for me. This is the thing I didn't like about Nas's Untitled album as well. As soon as he started rapping about cockroaches and fried chicken, I was out. Shout out to Chance Jolivet too. He summarized my exact feelings on Down.
Sonically, it don't sound too bad, but it's just crazy. I'm like, I couldn't play that for somebody and be like, Lupe that nigga. They'd be like, turn that shit off.
Chance is a trip. Check out his channel, links in description. But he raises an interesting point about Drogas Waves. Lupe has battled a reputation for being too deep, for too many, for too long. He may dumb it down for a reason, right? Now, Super Lupe fans like myself, we've never had a problem working to decipher his imagination, but this was an outlier even for him. 8 tracks in and I'm already translating Spanish and Googling slave ships. If I wasn't really into this project, I'd be like, why? Why am I doing this? It's not an easy entry point for people who aren't excited about extracurricular listening. The second third of the project, for example, is bookended by two of the most heart-wrenching songs you'll ever hear. In 2015, news broke around the world about a 3-year-old Syrian boy named Alan Kurdi who drowned as his family sought refuge from the war-torn nation. Lou dedicates Alan forever and reimagines his life had he not passed away. In Lou's world, he's a record-breaking Olympic swimmer. He does the same 6 tracks later with Janilla Forever, which reimagines the life of Janilla Watkins, a 6-month-old victim of Chicago gang violence. She becomes the next Doogie Howser, a brilliant young doctor. Both are undeniably beautiful, but now I'm thinking about dead children. There's a couple of Cartel songs in between, Stronger, for example, and Sun God Sam and the California drug deals. The latter feels like a woozy drive down Sunset Boulevard that ends with career slides off track and put the Porsche in the wall. 2/3 in and everything's intense. All of this points to the brilliance of Lupe Fiasco not only as an MC, but as a storyteller. Drogas Waves isn't simply a collection of songs, no, it's world building. There's anger and grief and despair, and before you realize it, you're drowning in emotion. It's like George R.R. Martin or Star Wars or something. And it's a reminder that the shackles that tie us to tragedy aren't permanent. It is possible to reimagine a narrative and use it as a force to push us forward. The song Imagine on the album, The Song Imagine, is a great example of Lupe applying that perspective to his own career. We've covered Lupe's traumatic history with his previous label in a few pieces. Check out how Lupe won his beef with Atlantic Records. Check out the piece on Chili, breaking down how Lupe only signed to Atlantic because Jay-Z was initially supposed to take over the label. Both links in description. Lou describes his career from his perspective and only has one regret. Roll the clip.
You ain't changed nothing? Like nothing? Well, it's not totally true. Young Lupe, I wish I could be totally you, but that's the way it works. Came to bring the pain, that's the way it hurts. Picking in the scabs from the past just gon' make it worse. Can't be 21 every time I sit and make a verse. When I did that song with Number 9, I was trying to break the curse. The good don't make it out the hood unless the hood make it out you first. All you need is just to believe that you can leave.
I love that joint. Love the final third of this project as well, where Drogas Wave starts off as a novel about the long change. It ends on a much more personal, much more tangible note, largely speaking. Stack That Cheese, for example, is a toss back to Hip Hop Saved My Life, the song about the Houston rapper that was on the Cool. Cripple and King Nas are stylistic salutes to Mos Def and Nas, while neither one's actually about those rappers. King Nas, for example, is about his nephews. Happy Timbuktu Day is a salute to DJ Timbuktu, who passed away in 2015 after a battle with cancer. That song, unquestionably quintessential hip-hop and too dope not to include in this piece. Roll the clip.
Now this might drive you insane. Keep blacks all around that waist, but don't wanna make us senseis. That's since slaves. Since slaves. When it's like, I don't wanna work. Since slaves. On ships, on waves, in waves. Okay. Colder than a gole, golder than my role. Told her, hope it hold her low just like Evander Hole.
The point is this: resurrection is the tie that binds all of these tales weaved within Drogas Waves. It's billed as a slave narrative, but resurrection, that motif shows up in a number of different ways. The slaves that didn't die, for example. Alan and Janilla's lives living on forever. Chicago State University leader Ronald Kwesi Harris, he passed away in 2016. He was close with Lupe. That's the Baba Kwesi interlude that's on the album. DJ Timbuktu, rest in peace. Even the third half feels like a resurrection of Lupe's love of hip hop, or at least a reaffirmation, complete with nods to Nas and Mos Def, and vintage flows. It's wild because I don't think we've really seen the musical possibilities of an unbridled Lupe Fiasco. Most of the time we've known him, he's been drowning on the business side of the music industry, sincerely. What other artist has ever needed a fan protest to secure the release of one project, and Anonymous, the internet's Batman, to secure the release of another? In that sense, Drogas Waves isn't only a fresh listen contextually or conceptually, but for Fiasco himself. It's been over 12 years since he's been free, and it does take a lot of work to decipher the who's and what's and why's of what's going down in this project. There's nothing like this in the marketplace, and it's absolutely unconventional. But Lupe Fiasco's been unconventional both on and off Wave Files since we met him, his entire career. Why wouldn't he even be more so now that he's finally unshackled? I don't have the answer to these questions.
Static selector.
Another weekend, another TBD. Thank you guys for rocking with us. I made a couple notes this week because there's a few things about this project that I didn't weave into the commentary, but I do think they're worth pointing out. Big shout out to Soundtrack and Lupe and Simon Says and all the producers. I think this is his best produced project, best production on here. Lupe did produce a lot of them too, so that's a new skill we haven't seen yet. Big shout out to Nikki Jean. She's all over it. She does a great job. They don't sound like they're making the same song over and over again, which can be pretty difficult. Also, this actually feels like a really matured Lupe. Like, what would a matured Lupe sound like if he was trying to remake The Cool? It reminds me a lot about Michael Young history and all the additional characters that were around that project, only minus easy entry points like Superstar or Gold Watch or Paris Tokyo. None of that's really on here. It's still a really dope listen. I'm not sure if this might be his best project ever, but it's in that conversation, and his catalog is so tight. Now you've got 4 projects you really got to take a look at historically in comparison to the rest of hip-hop. Not an easy thing to do. Supreme irony, this is the biggest irony of the entire project to me. His career starts off with a leak of Food and Liquor when he's on Atlantic. Now he's indie, and Drogas Waves leaked a week early, which is why he dropped it when he did. Who else would get a leak in 2018 other than Lupe Fiasco? You can't make this stuff up. I love this project. I feel like Lupe probably had these ideas for years and finally got a chance to put them out now. So what do you think he's gonna do next? What should he do next? What are your thoughts on this project? Make sure to leave any Easter eggs you guys found on this album in the comments section. I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. That's actually the best thing about being a Lupe Fiasco fan. Finding new things as we discover this project together. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow @The Company Man on everything. Hit that bell, hit that bell. I'm Justin Hunt, and as always, it's all happening.
But this represents a past that can't be changed, and that's the future, right? Taking control of it, making it nice and shiny and bright. And these are my motivations, right? These are the things that realign how I see the world, how I view things, and how I approach the world and how I think, and why I do what I do on the level that I does it, right? And to me, these are the most important things on the planet. So it's interesting where you're gonna find motivation. You find motivation in the worst parts, in the worst places of yourself, but you have to alter it and make it your own. Make it stand for what you want to stand it for. Take it back to its roots, or not. Rip up the whole fucking tree and grow your own tree. Plant your own seeds.